With YNW Melly being a famous rapper, it would make sense that we would hear rappers' names within his trial, including evidence proving that some rappers may be involved in the crime. Here's what you need to know. With the YNW Melly trial now on recess for a week, the prosecution are trying to invite more and more witnesses to testify against Melly. We would see Bryson Paul report on Twitter, Fredo Bang drops new music video today in support of his friend YNW Melly, called Free Melly. In the song, Fredo Bang speaks on the 3-year-long attempt to subpoena him to testify by the prosecutor with a line stating, "Talking about subpoena, tell that lady I ain't get it." The lady now he is referring to is actually the main prosecutor. She's allegedly been trying to sit with Fredo Bang for a deposition for 3 years now. He has never responded once. It's also the same lady who mentioned this about Fredo Bang earlier on in the trial.
And Chris Thomas are. So what you're also going to find out is while Mr. Devins is out there on the side of the road, 4 in the morning, 4:42 specifically, he sends a drop pin, digital homing beacon, to his current location, to one of his friends, Frederick Givens. Frederick Givens is also involved in the music industry, and he asked to be picked up. Frederick Givens, then, about 11 minutes later, is sent another drop pin where Mr. Devins has moved a couple of meters. What you're going to find out as well, though, is these digital leashes, they have more than just phone calls.
The same prosecutor would also go through YNW Melly's cell phone trying to find evidence. She would mention that YNW Melly has connections with rappers such as Young Thug, Lil Boosie, Travis Scott, Kodak Black, Lil Durk, and many more, with those text messages more relating to music and business. However, there was some things found on YNW Melly's cell phone which was concerning, and it was a parking lot meetup on the day of the crime in the area. Noticing photos of the meetup in Melly's phone, this would make prosecutors begin investigating, as a report would then be shared stating, "The Stranger Things jacket YNW Melly is wearing in this video just hours after the crime is the same one YNW Juvie had on when they left the recording studio early on in that morning. YNW Bortlen is wearing the one Sack Chaser had on as well." Crazy, isn't it? Including the Facebook Live of somebody recording YNW Melly and Bortlen just hours after the passings in 2018.
Hey. You see him? Melly still turned regardless of what happened this early morning. He's still out here being very positive. Turned still. Hey! The dog still turned, regardless of what happened. You already know.
That is how YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen were reacting and feeling just hours after the incident, as the timestamp on the Facebook Live is October 26, 2018, which is the exact day that it happened. YNW Juvie's family saw this video when it happened. This gave YNW Juvie's father the impression that Melly definitely had something to do with this crime, which is why we would see a report of the father of YNW Juvie explained why he believes YNW Melly is responsible for this crime.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation when I finally talked to him and Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They wasn't reacting to, they act like they didn't have to take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind, Something's not right.
As YNW Juvie's father took his frustration to social media after YNW Melly's reaction to a piece of evidence during the trial. Now, in the report of YNW Melly's reaction when a firearm expert tells the judge he didn't bring the item because he has no idea what item was used for this crime, including YNW Melly's smirky reaction.
Why not?
So the first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which firearm I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what firearm was used.
Okay. Do you have a...
YNW Juvie's father did not appreciate the smirky reaction by YNW Melly. However, in the latest day of trial, we would even see YNW Juvie's mother take the stand. Her job was to clarify which one of the individuals was her son in the surveillance footage of them leaving the recording studio, also mentioning which one of these individuals is YNW Melly.
Can you state your name, your full legal name for the jury?
I'm Leon Phillips.
Okay. And are you related to one of the in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother.
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Pause it at 2:19:15. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Janelle.
And Jamel, is that the defendant?
Allegedly, YNW Juvie's father was the one supposed to be taking the stand to clarify who is in the video. However, he was no longer allowed due to what he posted on social media just a week prior. The families of YNW Sackchaser and Juvie are not happy with how badly the prosecution have been dealing with this court case. As during the trial, we would see a report of judge in the YNW Melly trial ruled that undercover detective Danny Polo has to remove his mask for the remainder of the testimony, as this is the same Danny Polo who stated this about Melly earlier.
And they would quickly get checked. That happened to those two kids. I don't know how old they are. Those two guys that were claiming money, the Island Boys, with the fun haircut.
Okay.
Yeah, they were claiming to be members of, which is a set of, and they quickly got checked by almost every that can find them on social media. They got fined, and they then had to recant and apologize.
Did you find any evidence whatsoever of any recanting or apologizing by Mr. Devins in the records that you reviewed?
There's no recanting, there's no apologizing, there's no one calling out Mr. Devins for being a fake.
That same man had to remove his mask inside of the courtroom. When looking at YNW Melly's reaction to him revealing his face in the courtroom, Melly knew exactly who this man was in the streets.
Yes, sir. You can take off your mask.
Yes, sir.
Over. State's objection, Your Honor, based on the previous issues.
Jury entering.
As this is where Juvie and Sackchaser's families began to get frustrated with the court case, as without even realizing Danny made Melly look innocent, even though his job is to try to make Melly look guilty.
Now, Melly's defense is now entering into cross-examination of Danny Polo. And what Danny is admitting on the stand, now Danny Polo had admitted that YNW Melly was actually being recruited by two different sets. And based off of the text message thread between the different individuals trying to recruit Melly, Melly was not replying. Melly stated, weeks later that he was so busy doing radio interviews and shows that he just didn't have time to reply. And if you go back and read the text messages, those recruiters were basically begging Melly to reply back. And he didn't. Because Melly was an up-and-coming rapper who had a ton of money and ambition, and any of these different groups would love to have him under their roster. Because Melly wasn't interested in being a he was being labeled as somebody who was false flagging. It's possible that it was Shine that did the drive, all because Melly didn't want to be a part of their group.
We would then even see a viral report stating, the prosecutor is increasingly showing that this case really depends on very little evidence. All these messages are irrelevant. It shows nothing at all. No motive, no mention of the crime. It is just pure nonsense. As with every prosecution witness that took the stand to make Melly look guilty, all ended up doing the opposite. An FBI agent took the stand. This FBI agent specializes in cell phone data research. As the report would go on to state, YNW Melly's lawyers questions FBI agent that did analysis on Melly's phone at the time of the crime.
Based on the information, you can't really tell the court precisely which locations these phones are following, can you?
One of the limitations of cellular analysis is that you can only say a general area where the device would be at a given time.
All right. So even with the general analysis, all of the stuff that we've gone through for about 4 or 5 hours, at the end of the day, you can never give an exact location.
True.
And could you tell if somebody was walking around a car with the phone? Would you be able to tell that?
No.
So it'd be your testimony that this phone, 9807, could be from here to here, correct?
Yes.
And what was the distance?
While he did share some important information, it wasn't until the next topic of conversation where Melly looked extremely innocent of this crime. A DNA specialist took the stand. His job was to go over DNA research on items that were found at the crime scene, where the report would go on to state, DNA analyst confirms YNW Melly's DNA was not found on multiple items recovered at the crime scene.
So going to item number 22, the swab from the Gucci sandals. Were you able to compare the profile from Mr. Devins as opposed to the profile developed from those sandals?
I did, and he was excluded.
The stain on the front of the t-shirt, item number 23. Were you able to compare Mr. Devins' profile to that?
I did a comparison, and he was again excluded.
What about item number 24, the cutting of the stain of the rear of the t-shirt?
After comparisons were done, he was excluded.
Okay, then on item number 25, the swab of stain from the Air Jordans.
Again, an exclusion.
Going on to item number 26, the swab from the yellow jacket.
An exclusion as well.
And in terms of the item number 27 and 28, the swabs of the Gatorade bottles. What were the results on that?
Those were both exclusions.
However, YNW Melly's DNA was found on the outside of the car on the car door handle, which makes sense as we watched him get in there.
Excuse me, you're able to see? Yes? All right.
YNW Melly's lawyers now just need to prove that YNW Melly was picked up by rapper Fredo Bang as mentioned earlier. If Melly's lawyers can prove that Melly was picked up by Fredo Bang before the crime was done, then YNW Melly will look extremely innocent in this court case. As Melly and his lawyers know this, as this is how they reacted during the first recess of that court day.
Thank you. We'll report the jury step down. Counsel remain. Call with the defendant and witness. Yes, counsel, I'm sorry. I just figured it was easier if we just let the jury go.
Understood.
Makes sense. Your Honor, may we have this discussion just in case there needs to be some supplementation? testimony outside the presence of him.
Sure.
Sources claim from people that were at the courtroom on this day, YNW Melly was laughing so hard and was so happy that he had tears coming down his face. YNW Melly was crying in happiness, as this would make Melly look very much in favor, which would then lead to rappers reacting to him, causing Drake to share what he truly believes about YNW Melly.
A kid like YNW Melly who just has the craziest melodies, pain in his voice, you know, but not afraid to just be like, yeah, sure, like I might be this way on road, but in my music, this is what I enjoy doing.
We would even then later see Kodak Black speaking on YNW Melly and sharing his favorite memory with him.
Yeah, man, free that boy Melvin, man, free Melly. Yeah, man, stop playing. We're not playing like that. Oh, we go
Even causing Lil Durk to speak out, where he put on his Instagram Free Melly, and then followed it up with his favorite video alongside King Von that features a phone call with YNW Melly in jail.
Bust, you got 10 piece. Bust harder than mine. It's me. It's the it's y'all. I say you had 10 piece. What's wrong?
However, the reactions would then stop when convincing evidence came out, as it all started with the report of forensic expert in the YNW Melly case explains how he determined it was not a drive-by.
Assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. It's at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned so I'm gonna zoom in on site F.
This forensic expert is a 20-year veteran in his field, highly respected, and he has all of the accolades to prove it. He was not holding back against YNW Melly, as the next piece of evidence that he shared starts with the report of YNW Melly is accused to be the one using the firearm in this situation. Sergeant Williams, who said there was an item used 3 times inside of the Jeep, including 17 times outside of the Jeep.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that Christopher Thomas, where did that come from?
Driver's side back seat.
Okay. Is it possible for there to have been 2 inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
The rap lawyer would then even speak on this, as this was case-breaking evidence that was shared.
See what the experts are doing for the prosecution, and what's interesting to me is what the defense is doing when they cross-examine these experts, which is they're essentially highlighting the prosecution's opinion rather than try to pick apart holes and say, what about this, what about that? They're saying, oh, this is what you're saying, right? That's a fact? Okay, and they're knocking them down and they're pinning them down and they're saying, okay, I'm gonna hold you to this. This is your opinion. You think you know for a fact that came after this person was bet. You think you know for a fact that these came from not a drive-by because of the trajectory, and I know bet. And so what you're going to see, what I assume, because what is the defense doing? Well, I assume they have experts who they believe are a lot more credible, who have testified a lot more times in cases, who have a lot more research and credibility based on their experience and history in the field. And those experts are going to come on and take the stand, and those experts are going to poke the holes and say, you can't possibly know when this in relation to that. You can't possibly know how. We'll see. But that's what seems like it's setting up for the defense's experts to come in and...
With Sergeant Williams making YNW Melly look extremely guilty inside of the courtroom, it was then time for Melly's lawyers to ask him questions. With all of the heat in the moment going against Melly, his lawyers needed to direct the heat somewhere else. So one of the first questions Melly's lawyers ask him is a kind of clever way of snitching on YNW Bortlen.
And you are aware that the person that claimed it was a drug is Cortland Henry?
I believe so. I don't know who said that it was a drive. I was just asked to say if it was a drive.
Okay. And you were aware that when Cortland Henry made this statement that this gentleman was nowhere around, right?
I wasn't part of the initial investigation, okay. So I don't know if that was included in their, Miramar's investigation with that.
Okay, but what you are saying is whoever claimed was lying.
Was incorrect.
YNW Melly's lawyer once again making it very public to the jury that Bortlen lied to the feds and even lied about what happened. This is then when YNW Bortlen would appear inside of the courtroom the following day.
Cortland Henry?
Yes, sir. He's present.
That you in the back of the
status conference.
Come on up.
I guess you're already trial with co-defendant right now. We're set for October 3rd. For trial.
You had a motion pending as well?
Yes, Judge. As the court, when we were here the last time, you let him go to church and stuff, you said about working, you would be subject to seeing his schedule. We filed a schedule for the next couple of months.
I saw that.
Be able to work. And I talked to his probation supervisor. She has no problem with him at all. She said that if he's going to go to work, she'd like anybody has to do, provide an itinerary, where he's going to be, how he's going to get there, how it's going to get done.
As it was later announced, YNW Bortlen, YNW Melly's co-defendant, trial for this case will begin October 2nd, as during his small court hearing the trial date was set, but also a few questions were answered that we've all been waiting for, which could relate to the feds knowing Melty was the guilty one all along. The first question was, why did YNW Bortlen receive a bond out of jail for the last few years, but not YNW Melly?
And he was able to negotiate a bond for him because of the charges that he was charged with, because they felt that he wasn't the man, and because of his prior criminal history, which I think was very sparse. So all those things went into whether or not he was going to be given a bond. I think at the time that the bond was being argued, there was the evidence that was being presented at his bond hearing was very difficult to kind of gel together in terms of, as you've seen during the trial, right? So there's a lot of things that are going on in the trial that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't really gel. Some things are out of whack. And that's what happens at an Arthur hearing when you're moving for bond on this type of charge.
This is revealing that the feds believed all the way from the start YNW Melly was the man who did this crime. Mix that in with Bortlen not having a legal history, that's why he received bond. However, the next question is where it gets interesting.
Is it too late for Cortland to plea?
It's like the Justin Bieber song, it's never too late to say sorry, I think. No, I don't think it's too late. It's never too late. I've had individuals been offered pleas but turned them down in the middle of trial. I've had people offered pleas before a verdict came back. So it just depends on the case, depends on the prosecutor, depends on the actual charges. So no, it's never too late for that. He could take a plea in the middle of his case. I don't think that would happen. If he was going to take a plea, if there was going to be a deal, it would be in the middle of Melly's case.
Many online lawyers are stating YNW Bortlen taking a plea deal in this case is now very likely, as again, he has no legal history. This means it'll be very easy for Bortlen to set this deal up. As to YNW Melly having a criminal history already, where Melly was already involved in a court case just a few years ago, where the deposition for that was leaked to the public.
Like I told you, a lot of the stuff we don't need because we have all this evidence already. Now's your time.
Really need to think about what you're going to do. Because now is the time to try to be honest and try to make things right. Okay? If you shot in self-defense or something, you need to let us know.
I did.
What happened?
Somebody at the Pond Tomato pulled out.
Who?
One of the kids.
Somebody you go to school with?
Yeah.
Same grade?
Yeah.
What's he go by?
I think he goes to the alternative.
All right. What's his street name?
I know his last name, Gillespie.